The students pitted against their former university in their efforts to get compensation for degrees impacted by online learning and Zoom lectures during the pandemic. Today, a milestone has been reached as students from University College London get their hearing at the High Court of Justice to see if their claim can go to trial.
Students paid UCL several £1,000s per year for services, and those services were in-person tuition on campus with access to facilities that students needed in order to support their learning. And in short, students didn't receive those services. The services that were provided to them fell far below that. So most students during the pandemic received a Zoom online education. And in any other context where you pay for a service and you receive half of that, you expect to be refunded for the difference in the value of the services you receive compared to what you paid for. And this is no different.
Just over 5,000 students from UCL have lodged a complaint against the uni in the High Court of Justice. One of those students is Alice Coughlin, who started uni in 2020 and spent the first 2 years of his course online only. He only went to campus for the first time in his third and final year of his degree. Do you think that your results were lower than they could have been, or suffered or were impacted negatively in some way because of the nature of the first 2 years of your studies being work from home instead of the normal quote-unquote experience?
Yeah, definitely, because it took until third year until I started getting firsts. I felt like by third year I'd cracked the code of how to get firsts in my assessments. My argument, it was never the knowledge. I did all the reading, that wasn't the issue. I feel like if there was maybe a bit more hands-on help, which you really couldn't get on Zoom and on through online lectures, so my grades suffered because of my grades in first and second year, which by the time I got to third year, even though it's weighted the most, I got a first in my dissertation, I did quite well in third year, it averaged out as less than I was hoping for.
Lawyers for the Student Action Group say this case has been ongoing for several years, with the college initially trying to get students to resolve disputes via internal complaints procedures and then via an ombudsman.
That's a process that we say the Ombudsman is not equipped to deal with this volume of students. It's a process that would take several years, and the court agreed with us last year and confirmed that the High Court of Justice is the correct avenue for students to receive this compensation. Regrettably, the parties weren't able to achieve a settlement out of court, and so we are now moving forward in the claim, moving forward towards a trial.
UCL issued a statement regarding today's hearing. Professor Kathy Armour, UCL Vice Provost, said the High Court hearing is purely procedural, adding that it's only there to determine whether or not a group litigation order is appropriate or whether another form of dispute resolution is acceptable. The statement also went on to say UCL has already offered an alternative dispute resolution process, which it says was flatly rejected by the lawyers of the students. Students are not trying to say that UCL did anything wrong during the pandemic. Doing lectures by Zoom and remotely online was to be expected during a time of lockdowns. But what they are saying is that the money they paid for their degrees, for their courses, was a large amount, and the service provided didn't match their expectations when you take into account the sums that they had to pay. Now, this case could potentially prove as a test case for further universities and further students in different organisations around the country seeking compensation for their studies during the pandemic. Simon Anderson, London Live.